All right, we are broadcasting live. Ryan, he shared it directly to me, but in case anyone needs it, here is the link to the YouTube. I don't know why anyone would need it because you're all here, but just in case. And it looks like we have Senator Martwick here, so we are good to go. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and get us started. All right. Thank you all for joining us for the JPF February 2021 general meeting. We've got a tight agenda tonight, so it'll be nice if anyone wants to stick around after for hanging out for a little bit. We should have plenty of time for that. Right after I'm done talking, I'm going to kick it over to Senator Martwick, who's going to give us some updates and some information from Springfield. And then we'll move into JPF business, our treasurer's report, an update on the joint efforts of the working group on homelessness. We'll have some updates from our board and committees, and then we'll have some other business. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and actually stop sharing and ask if you guys want to change your view to speaker view, and then I'm going to hand it on over to Senator Martwick.
Thanks, Maggie. Thanks, everyone. Good to see you all, if not just on this Zoom thing. I know it's, I can't believe we are almost a year into this, but thank God for Zoom, because it allows us, it does allow us to do these sorts of things and stay together and keep doing things. So it's always a pleasure to meet with you all. I wish it was on the patio at the Windsor, and I could have a cold beer and talk about everything that's going on in Springfield. But instead, I will have my I don't know, seltzer water, and when I'm done, I might go pour myself whiskey. But until then, I figured I'll talk a little bit about what's going on. So obviously, we've begun the 102nd General Assembly, and I'm now serving in the Senate. As many of you know, I moved to the Senate when Senator Mulrow became a judge. And of course, I was replaced by the far more capable Lindsay LaPointe, who's doing a great job at state representative right now. And so we've started. The good news is that unlike last year, both chambers have now passed rules that permit remote participation. And so we're able to actually have committee meetings, discuss legislation, vote on legislation in committee hearings, and move that legislation to the floor. So we are doing that. We are beginning to start the work of committees and start advancing legislation, which is really welcome, because we just, the General Assembly really is supposed to do so much. And then the last year, because of the pandemic, we were limited to just those things that were essential to the operation of the government and the response to the pandemic. But now we can get back to those other little legislative initiatives that we're working on. And that's good news about this. Hopefully we will all be able to get back as the vaccine rollout continues. Hopefully we'll all be able to get back and work in person, but for now we can do the remote stuff. We are scheduled to go back in March, so we'll do remote in February, and then I guess we'll see where we're at in March and see what our leadership decides. In response to the pandemic, some of the stuff we're working on obviously is vaccine rollout. And if you have specific questions, I'm lucky to be joined today by our joint outreach coordinator for both Representative LaPointe's office and mine. Alex Sober is here, and she can answer questions because she has been going through all of the working groups on the vaccines and figuring out what we can do. So she'll have all the answers for you on that. Obviously, the pandemic has had so many far-reaching effects. So some of the stuff that we're continuing to work on in Springfield that we've been working on since this hit is housing security, right? Whether that is foreclosure and eviction moratoriums, but it's also, getting money into the pipeline so that small landlords are not hurt as well, to make sure that that money gets through to them. Continuing to develop affordable housing alternatives. And so that's a big issue of it, a big part of what we're working on. And then, of course, the big one is the budget, right? And so yesterday, Governor Pritzker gave his budget address and outlined how he intends to close this budget. Good news is that revenues are higher than anticipated. The economy did not suffer as much as projected. So our hole was somewhat smaller than we thought we would have. And as a result, the governor's budget proposal does not include an increase in the personal income tax rate, or in the corporate rate for that matter. However, the governor has proposed closing some corporate loopholes. And of course, as you can imagine, there's always two sides, right? So what we call corporate loopholes, corporations might call business incentives, right? So we've got that out there, but most of these involve decoupling from the federal tax breaks that were passed under the Trump administration. So these businesses will still be able to claim that federal benefit, but there won't be an associated state benefit that goes with it. That will raise about $700 million and will help us close our budget gap. So that's the good news, is that we don't need a tax increase. There is some not so good news. For the second year in a row, education funding is held flat, and that's never good, right? I mean, it sounds like, oh, we didn't make any cuts to education, but we're already one of the lowest of any state in the nation in terms of state support for education. And of course, what the state doesn't pay is made up in your property tax bill, right? So we all know about that end of it. So it's really just moving money around. We had committed to increasing funding every year by $350 million. We've skipped the last 2 years because of the pandemic. Again, we're not making cuts, but it's not good. And so hopefully, as we get down to the work now, the governor has given his proposal. Now the General Assembly will get to work, and I assure you that there is a strong appetite for ensuring that we're increasing our funding for K through 12 education. The other big topic that's going on right now, I'm sure many of you have seen the talk on social media, is the criminal justice reform bill that was passed during the end of session, that what we call the lame duck session, right before we were sworn in. It is a big bill, 764 pages. It has some pretty big effects. Not terribly profound in terms of what was proposed to what wound up. The changes are somewhat minimal compared to what was proposed, but there are things in there that create accountability for officers, and some transparency through the process. So, just a couple of things that we did, and it is a comprehensive criminal justice reform. So it creates accountability for police officers, but it also provides greater training and better mental health services for police officers, better resources to police officers to hopefully make them better. So increased training regimen, increased training on some of the areas that are problematic that we've had, from some of these big incidents. And again, increased access to mental health, which is a real good thing. We've also added some other things into the system that create more pathways to rehabilitation and hopefully lowering recidivism in the bill. And one of the biggest changes was, of course, the elimination of cash bail. So I don't know if you've heard about this, but the way it gets twisted on both sides. So what's talked about is, now we're just going to let everybody out of prison on an individual recognizance bond. We're not going to hold anybody. That's not true. It's a human system. Bail is a human system where a defendant comes before a judge and a judge makes a decision, and he has 3 decisions: let that individual go, hold that individual without bond, or set some sort of dollar amount that's supposed to secure his return and keep that offender from reoffending potentially or causing harm. What we've done is we just took that dollar part out. And so now that judge still has the human decision, but it's whether or not that person is safe enough to return to society, or is a danger enough that they need to be held. And what it does is it prevents people who are of no economic means from being held in prison while they're presumed innocent on what's a minor charge, while people who have means can bond out of what would be a very serious charge and very dangerous offenses. So that is the elimination of cash bail. So there's a lot there. We created a law officer misconduct for officers who very, very strict thing. They have to knowingly and intentionally lie or misrepresent a fact on their police report, or knowingly, intentionally misuse their body camera, turn off their body camera. A very difficult burden to prove, so we'll only really get the really, really egregious cases. Your good officers that make a mistake, turn it off, don't accurately recall some minor detail, that's not going to get anyone in trouble. This is the highest burden in law. So this is only the most egregious and obvious cases, and of course, you think George Floyd, right? Or you think Laquan McDonald, where all of a sudden we watched a video, but then we found out that all these police reports had nothing. The video was, they'd all corroborated and got together and lied on their police reports. And this would find a way of creating accountability for that. There will be trailer legislation there. Anytime there's a bill this big, there are obviously little problematic things in there that need to be tweaked. And we are in the process of identifying those. And I assume that there will be trailer legislation that follows. And that, of course, assumes the governor signs it. So that's criminal justice reform. Happy to answer questions on that. I'll briefly touch on a few of the things that I'm really working on. And again, because we will be going back in earnest, there is no end to the number of bills that will come. There will be lots of issues. So if there's issues that are important to you, please reach out to us and let us know. Let us know where you stand on these issues. I'm going to simply tell you about the stuff I'm working on. I think you probably will not be surprised to find out that I am once again proposing a bill that would create an elected representative school board for the Chicago Public Schools. Yes, thank you. I no more applause, because until I get it passed, it's like, this is my Sisyphus bill. I keep pushing that boulder up the hill. I have a commitment from the Senate president. I thought I had one to run the bill in veto session, or in lame duck session. That didn't happen, but he has committed to me that it will go this year. So we're going to go back to the process of going to the bargaining table with CPS and the mayor's office, see if we can work out some sort of compromise. And if not, then I'm prepared to push the bill that I have put forward that would create a fully elected school board. That's what I believe needs to be done, but this is the process of legislation. Another bill that I file with that every year doesn't really get as much attention, but it's something I intend to put a full court press on this year as well. And that would create an elected city colleges board for the city colleges of Chicago. Once again, the only community college system in the state without an elected representative board of trustees. And I think we should have one. There were some profound changes made to city colleges that I think were really recently and that were not good. And it's not whether or not I think they're good. It's just the way that they went about it was very much the way CPS does things, which is very authoritarian. We're making the changes. We don't care what anybody else wants. And they made some changes where they took the community out of community college. For, community colleges are supposed to be for people who need access to continuing education that's in their community, right? And what they did was they created a city college system that where people, if they wanted to take different courses, had to travel all over to the far reaches of the city. And it really wasn't a good model. I don't think it was. But again, it doesn't matter. What matters is what you think, what everyone thinks is a good model, because we should be able to weigh in on those decisions through elected accountability. Two other big issues I'm working on. One you've probably heard of is the Clean Energy Jobs Act. This is the follow-up to the Future Energy Jobs Act, which was passed not too long ago, a few years ago. But the Clean Energy Jobs Act would move us towards 100% renewable energy, and it is an initiative that I feel very strongly about, I'm a co-sponsor on it, and I'll be working to secure its passage. And then finally, my own sort of personal thing that I've been working on for a while is retirement security. I'm a big fan of retirement security. As we all know, our country is loaded full of people who are approaching retirement age and have little to nothing saved up. And so I work with, I'm doing two things. One is for our public sector employees, and I'm working on the private sector side as well. So both of these involve making retirement savings what's called opt out as opposed to opt in, right? And so this means whether you are a private sector employee or a public sector employee, you can choose not to save your money for retirement if you choose. But what we're not going to do is we're not going to have the default option be decide whether or not you want to invest. The default option will now be decide whether or not you want to stop investing. So private sector employees, I'm working with the state treasurer on what's called Secure Choice, which provides a state-run retirement savings plan for employers that don't, or employees who work for employers that don't offer an employer-based plan. And we are now working to pass automatic enrollment, which means that if you get a job and your employer doesn't offer a 401k plan, they must enroll you in the Secure Choice IRA savings plan. And then you will start investing your money. Again, you can always opt out. It's your money. There's no fee. We're not taking anything from it. We're just ensuring that you are starting out on the right foot by getting your retirement savings early. I'm doing the same thing with public sector employees. As many of you know, we changed pensions about 11 years ago, and the new pension system is woefully insufficient. It really does not prepare our employees for retirement. And if they reach retirement age and they're unprepared for that retirement, they will then need to rely on the government to provide them benefits, which of course will be a burden, right? That it's not good for them. It's not good for us. It's not good for our kids who will have to bear this burden. So the key is get public sector employees enrolled in a deferred compensation savings plan and contributing and start building up savings so that they can be secure in their own retirement. So those are the three big things that I'm working on: elected school boards, Clean Energy Jobs Act, and continuing my push for proactive retirement savings for every individual in the state of Illinois. So that's it for now. I'll be happy to answer any questions, and Alex will be happy to answer specific questions about vaccines, because she knows more about it than I do. So thank you very much. Great to see you all. I look forward to having a beer in person, and I'm going to sip my.
Nice. We do have a question from the chat. We have Heidi asking, any luck on the landlord bill for those who won't rent their spaces? Or I think she was talking about the vacant storefront bill.
Yes. So the answer is yes and no, right? So I brought it up as a legislative initiative some years ago with the idea of trying to get state law to fix this problem. As it turns out, state law is the wrong place to do that, because it is not. Vacancy relief is not written into the law. So vacancy relief is a tool of valuation that assessors can use, and they each can use it in their own way. There's no state rule or set of guidelines. Some assessors offer it, some assessors don't. In Illinois, there are assessors that don't give any vacancy relief. Some give a maximum of 80%, some give a maximum of 50%. So they each have their own set of rules. But the good news is, so while we're not pursuing a legislative solution to it because it's not appropriate to do it in state law, the good news is that by drawing attention to it, as we did, many people here who were interested in it, and bringing it to the attention of our Cook County assessor, they have raised the requirements for receiving vacancy relief to really a very onerous level. I mean, now owners of stores that want to get vacancy relief have to go through quite a extensive process, and it's not a foregone conclusion that you're going to get it. So they've tightened up the requirements, and they're scrutinizing it much more, and as a result, there are less vacancy reliefs being granted. Now, just for Heidi's point, I just want to point something out. Just because a storefront is vacant doesn't necessarily mean that they're getting vacancy relief. So when Alderman Rue was the alderman, we set up a meeting and he brought all these files of vacant stores in Milwaukee Avenue. And it was only about a third of them that were actually getting vacancy relief at the time. About 2/3 of the vacant stores on Milwaukee weren't. And I think that's been tightened up even more since we brought attention to the issue.
We have a follow-up from Mitch on the chat. Do these vacant landlords have to reapply yearly, or is this a one-time application?
No, they have to apply every year. It's 1 year only relief. And so whatever the relief from the assessed value is, the next year it automatically goes up and they have to come and reapply and they have to present all new evidence again that next year.
Got it. Adam Vavrick had the same question, but as far as residential?
So typically, vacancy relief is not granted on residential properties. There are some exceptions. If you are completely like gut rehabbing a home, you can get a vacancy relief on it while it's uninhabitable. And if you own a home that you rent out, you can apply for vacancy relief. If you can't find a tenant, I suppose you could do that. But it's typically not granted on residential.
Thank you, Senator. All right, is that it for the questions, guys? Because I'm going to hand it over to Alex for a second, just to give us a quick overview of what she's been learning with all the COVID rollout updates. And then we can ask her any questions after that. So go ahead, Alex. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, so I've been attending every 2 weeks or so the legislative COVID briefings through the city of Chicago. So we do kind of fall into the two buckets of the suburban Cook County health system. If you do work in the suburbs, you can get a vaccine through them, or through the city of Chicago health system. There are two. So some of the most important things I've learned is under the Trump administration, we were getting about 5 days notice on how many vaccines we're going to get. Under the Biden administration, it's a 3-week notice. So they can really look ahead for the next 3 weeks to think about how many doses we're getting. They're not expecting to see any increases in February. That's what they told us, but they are expecting to see significant increases in March and even more significant increases in April. So that's kind of why, I mean, we've been getting around 40,000 doses a day for 600,000 times 2. Yeah, like over 1 million people that need to get vaccinated in this first round in the Cook County area. So we're getting there. Doses will be increasing, just not this month, next month. So that's kind of the most important thing that I've learned. We are on track to get more doses. It's just a process. Other than that, I know the whole sign up process has been very frustrating. I've heard of people having luck with the Cook County website. I've heard of people having luck with the Cook County phone line. I know that sometimes when you call it, you can't even get through. ZocDoc through the city, you can get vaccinated at Wright College. It's supposed to give you updates. I just got an email for them because I signed up to get my grandma vaccinated, that they were like, we promise we haven't forgotten about you. So I know the entire rollout has been really frustrating for people over 65 and in Group 1B, but it is getting better. I know we were nearing 1.5 million doses administered in Illinois this week, and that was really impacted by the weather, but it's steadily increasing. Our daily doses are averaging around 60,000 a day now in the state. So it's not perfect, but we're getting there. And we, in terms of equitability among racial groups, we are doing a lot better than some other states that haven't looked into that, because, for example, in the city, there are 15 community areas that are all, for the most part, predominantly Black or predominantly Hispanic communities that have seen really, really high impacts of COVID that are getting prioritized. So as we get a greater supply, we will be getting more, vaccine rollout in the medium areas, which is kind of what we fall under, or even the low risk areas, which is what parts of this area fall under as well. So that's where we're at. Everyone keeps asking that we exercise patience, but I do have liaisons at both the city and county level that are answering specific questions for me about, like, for example, librarians, where do they fall? They're Group 1C. So if you have specific questions like that, let me know.
Thank you, Alex. All right, so Heidi and or Adam, if you want to direct message, private message, or email Senator Martwick, he's asking the address. Did anyone else have any questions for the senator, for Alex? All right, it looks like we are good. Thank you guys so much for your time. I know you're
Thank you.
busy. If you want to stay, please do. You're clearly welcome, but I put you first just in case you had other obligations.
Well, I appreciate that. Thank you very much. It's great to see you all, and everyone stay well and healthy, and look forward to seeing you again soon in person.
Same.
Bye,
Thank
everyone.
you. All right, just to keep me on track, let's figure out where we are. Oop. All right, I'm going to hand it over to Katie to give us a brief financial update.
Hello, everyone. Good to see you all. You can see our update there on the screen. We currently have a balance of $9,527.63. Membership is currently at a total of 122 members with 93 regular, 3 associate, 25 business, and 1 nonprofit member. Thank you all for coming.
And Ryan created a quick map that kind of plots out all of our memberships. So just wanted to share that with you. That was kind of cool to see how we're all spread out around the neighborhood. And then I'm just going to follow that with a general reminder of what your membership does. Like, you know, it helps fund all of our administrative costs and our efforts for beautification and supplies for cleanups and stuff like that. And if you have any questions, or if you have a financial impact from COVID that is preventing you from becoming a member simply because of cost, I invite you to email me and we'll figure it out. We don't want membership to be cost prohibitive, but also that funding really helps us be able to do things to better the community. So we are really grateful for everyone who has re-upped their membership or joined recently, including all of our business members too. So with that, I'm going to pass it over I'm going to stop sharing screen. I'm going to pass it over to Rolando to give us a brief update on the Jefferson Park Working Group on Homelessness. It's a group that is a gathering of many local organizations and leaders that started in an effort to offer some dignity to people who were living near the transit center as far as bathrooms, and it has grown exponentially and very quickly. So we appreciate everyone's support and patience, and with that I will hand it over to Orlando.
Hi everyone, I have some notes to read from, so bear with me. Lots of things have been happening, especially in the last month and a half. We hosted Housing Day at the terminal, which was a very big success. We brought in and we partnered with the Night Ministry and Heartland Alliance to have conversations with some of our unhoused neighbors regarding housing opportunities. Of the 20 that they spoke with, 9 registered. 3 of the 9 are veterans, which kind of helps move them up the priority list. And we learned today that 2 have been initially matched for housing. We actually learned that a few hours ago. So that's exciting news. The other big thing, as you can imagine, as you've seen, is the cold snap that we just experienced. It was a scary time. We didn't know exactly what we were going to do, but the volunteers worked really hard in the last, 15 days to raise funds, to raise supplies, check in with our unhoused. There were daily check-ins at the transit center and at other locations where the working group has identified other unhoused individuals. We touched base with Kenneth at Irving Park. We identified someone at Higgins and Central. Over the course of the cold snap, we identified someone new at 6 Corners. So volunteers have been driving around the local area trying to identify and help anyone in need. Some people agreed to go to shelters, which is great. Others decided they would utilize the warming centers over the day, but many would return in the evening. 4 agreed to be, sorry, froze. 4 agreed to, were uncomfortable with the shelters, so they agreed to be put up in hotels. Thanks to the community, we were able to support that. Lots of financial donations came in to protect some of these people who would accept it. Of the 4, 1 is a veteran. He is also on the Veterans Association list for additional support and housing. Today, a local business owner identified that he had hotel points that were expiring, and donated his points to the working group. So for this veteran, we were able to put him up at a slightly nicer hotel for the next 10 days. So he's very excited. The VA has reached out about additional funding to help him. So we're hoping that these 10 days buy us the time that we need to connect the VA with this veteran. Of the people that we have identified at the transit center, one person also gave us permission to contact his family, which took him in. They were very concerned because of the cold temperatures. So that was also great to help connect and see happen. We've also been working with someone help me here, the DFSS, Department of Family Support Services. They sent out their mobile clinic today to begin COVID vaccinations of our unhoused neighbors. And they'll be returning, I believe, every 2 weeks. This will help us get the word out, either personally or through other unhoused individuals at the transit center to share the information and get more people vaccinated. Big news, since we started collecting funds for the working group, we have raised over $4,000. That's $4,000 in less than a month. So we're very grateful to all of you, to the community, anyone who has volunteered time, energy, money, supplies. We thank all of you. And we have a care kit drive for this Saturday taking place between 10 a.m. and 2 p.m. At Third Place Chicago, 4651 North Milwaukee. The list of items is posted in the event that was shared to the JPF page. We try to share that as widely as we could. And we are currently working on organizing a coat drive as well. Questions, comments?
All right, I think we got that. No, we're good. All right. All right, next up, let's see. Mark, did you have any update for community development, or you want to wait till next meeting?
Sure, just quickly, we had a nice salon discussion a week or two ago, a book club helped organized by Susie Ernst. We had a book club on a book on urban and community development on the fringes of urban areas. We do have a committee meeting in March and a salon planned for May. No specific topic yet, but if you have any ideas, you can let me know. And that's all for community development today. I think, unless Ryan, you wanted to speak at all about some of your research you've done on kind of related to the community development committee and census and other data and mapping tools.
Yeah, just quickly, we have got some new mapping software. We've been starting to pull some data together that we're trying to figure out what we're going to do with it at the moment. But a couple of interesting things on our community development page, and eventually this will move forward out onto the main site. We've got a development tracker spreadsheet, which is tracking all of our transit-oriented development projects. So those are developments within, roughly a quarter mile or 2 to 3 blocks of the transit station. Just the reason why we want to track this is just so we can get a sense of like what the total, the aggregate amount of development is. So for example, with all the developments proposed, there's 40,000 square feet of commercial space and 500 plus units of residential space. So like that kind of scale is just useful for us to know as things get going, and if anyone knows any interested businesses, that there's a lot of activity coming forward. The other thing we've been digging into is pulling some of the transit data. So the Regional Transportation Authority's got a really nice page on their website that's tracking all of the ridership data from COVID, but also from beforehand. And so we're trying to get a sense of like what the ridership patterns are like for public transportation at Jefferson Park. And we're also, I will be looking at, the Gladstone Park Metro and the Mayfair Metro, all stuff that's kind of in our general boundaries, but just trying to get a sense of who's moving around where and the goal is that, you know, if there's ever a business or something that wants to locate in Jeff Park, that we're going to have an aggregate amount of data that we can share with them. And that's it.
Nice. All right, thanks. Rolando did drop the, I think that's the, which drive is that, the toilet or the toiletries or care kit drive event? So that's in the
Yeah, sorry, I
chat.
thought I mute.
No worries. Okay, cool, cool. How about you, Don? You want to give us an update on marketing and maybe the JPF walk?
Sure. Just reminder, business partner raffle in full swing. As you know, this month, you know, you get an extra entry if you're actually submitting a receipt for a true business partner as opposed to for one of our local favorites. I mean, I know a lot of people bought punchkis this week, so I expect to see lots of receipts, whether it's for you know, delightful or ideal, what have you.
And Valentine's Day.
So, you know, please send them in. If you're one that says, well, I don't want to win, I don't really need the gift certificate, and you don't want to participate in the drawing, that's fine. But still just, you know, send in the receipts, because and just with a note saying, hey, you don't have to include me in the drawing. This way, you know, it's really nice if we can show that, hey, our members spent, you know, $6,000 in the community this past month, or, you know, whatever the total end total ends up being. So please do send them in. With actually, you talk about, you know, the JPF walk. The walk we had in January was nice. We did the full, you know, we hit Weston's, we hit Delightful Pastries, we hit Fanny's, who had just reopened, Distinct Bath. So it was nice. We did a nice job hitting up some of the local businesses on that walk. And so with that segue, yes, it doesn't look like it outside, but yes, there is a walk a week from Saturday. Hopefully it's going to warm up a bit. We're supposed to have some 40s next week. So, so keep tuned to the Facebook page. If weather allows, we will still be having the walk. Now, I'll do some reconnaissance next week. The walk that we're going to do, the intent is we'd hit Bohemian Cemetery to look at the Eastland Monument, and then do North Park Village Nature Center. That stretch of sidewalk on Pulaski, there's a reasonable chance that does not get maintained as far as getting shoveled, that, you know, basically miles stretch, because there's nothing there but cemetery. So I'll check it out next week, and if it looks like it hasn't been shoveled, I'll come up with another route if it looks like that's impassable as far as walking. But other than that, like I said, the plan is we'll still be meeting at Weston's 10 o'clock a week from Saturday. Keep attuned to the Facebook page for any updates. And that's all I have.
Thanks, Don. I appreciate it. I don't think any of the other board members have anything to report. But I did want to acknowledge and welcome Dana Fritz from Congressman Quigley's office, just to say hey and offer you the floor if you have any updates or anything to share, but also just want to say hi and thanks for coming.
Sure, thank you. Thank you for letting me Zoom into your meeting. I appreciate it. It's always good to hear from the neighbors and hear what's going on in the neighborhood. It's great to hear Fanny's is reopened. Hopefully when our office opens again soon, we'll pop back in there for some coffee. We are open virtually. We're still taking requests, constituent service requests at the federal level through our website, and I'll put that in the chat function, quigley.house.gov. And you could also always give us a call, 773-267-5926. I will give a plug. The biggest issue that we're having right now that we're experiencing, and probably all of the neighbors are as well, is the postal service problems. And I see a lot of heads nodding, yes. You maybe saw there's been quite a bit of media coverage about it. I know that maybe ABC did a story on Gladstone Park in particular. And, you know, for perspective, postal was pretty difficult last year due to the pandemic, and we're not quite even done with February yet. And we've gotten nearly as many calls since the start of the year as we did all of last year with regards to postal complaints. And I know it's been quite challenging on the postal delivery folks due to the pandemic, and now the weather's also creating some problems. If you are experiencing an issue with your delivery, we are encouraging folks to call the office to let us know. In fact, the best way to do it is through our website, actually. We are getting so many calls, sometimes the voicemail is actually filling up. And so you're all tech savvy since we're all on the Zoom call. If you go to our website, there is a photo of a postal truck. And if you click on that, you can give us the details that we need. It has a Google form right now. The name, address, phone number, email, and the problem. And Adam is the gentleman in our office. Some of you maybe have spoken to him. He has been working diligently with the USPS, as has the congressman. He's made some phone calls at the local level, and then through his subcommittee as chairman of FSGG, he has a hearing with the Postmaster General scheduled for early March. So there are it's certainly a big issue in the city, in the district. We're experiencing a lot of problems. It's also a national issue as well, and there's some structural issues there, so that we're trying to address both, trying to address the local issues now as they come in, and the congressman's working to address some of the structural issues as well. But the best way, if you are experiencing issues, is to just let us know about it. Again, through the website is a great way to do it. If some of your neighbors are having problems as well and they're not as tech savvy, feel free to give them our phone number, pass that along. The more data that we have, the better we're able to address the issue and make a case for changes in services or additional resources, that sort of thing. That's the big one. Like I said, it's taking up quite a bit of time and energy at the office, but we are still working on all the other fun, exciting stuff that you would give us a call for. Lots of people, we're trying to help them with the economic impact payments or stimulus checks. Some folks still never receive that, so we're directing them to the recovery rebate credit on their upcoming taxes. So we're helping folks navigate that. A lot of folks filed their taxes a little bit later than others since they extended the deadline, and they haven't even gotten those 2019s processed yet. So we are trying to help folks with that as well. And really any sort of federal level cases, lots of people actually are trying to maybe thinking positively, applying for passports and navigating that process. So yes, feel free to give us a call or reach out to us. I'll put my email in the chat feature as well, and we'll help you as best we can.
All right, thank you. We do have a little question in the chat, which I'll leave to you to decide if you want to answer or not. And any timeline on that?
Yeah. Well, I know that he doesn't have the only oversight of the post office. So I know that there's a series of hearings that are going to be happening both in the House and the Senate. I do think there were a lot of changes and proposed changes from the previous administration that they've been working to pause. And I'm sure that, a little bit of change in management probably would help in some respects. And, there's always challenges at USPS. So I think there's some overarching structural issues, funding with the pensions, that sort of thing, that they are also trying to get at.
Unmute. Makes sense. All right. If no one else has any questions, we'll move into closing it up here. I just wanted to end with a little gratitude, mostly for people who are not on the Zoom, so I will be quick, but you know, as Mark mentioned, that Susie helped on our community development salon, and she and Frank also helped give us like a ton of trivia, Jefferson Park specific trivia for our holiday party. And Gale Street Inn hooked us up with a nice JPF special for everybody. So I wanted to throw out some thanks to them and ask, you know, not that any of you need encouragement, because I know y'all like, you know, keep spending local. I wanted to give another shout out to Weston's and Fanny's for their offers of time and money and sales promotions to help the working group. And I know that there's a ton of other thank yous that I probably owe. So thank you. I'm just going to say thank you to everybody. And with that, I'll open up to the floor if anyone has anything for the good of the club. Otherwise, I will go ahead and end the meeting, but I'll give you a minute. Is anyone? Looks like Dana's going ahead and put his number and all of his contact info in the chat. So please copy paste that. All right, and hearing nothing, I'm going to go ahead and end this meeting. Thank you all for coming. If anyone wants to stick around for a cocktail, we will do that, but let me get off of YouTube Live first, okay? So thanks all. I'm going to end our